Hello and welcome. I am back from Warhammer Fest. My name is Andy Salkeld, and this is going to be a long video of me going through everything that has gone on over the past 2-3 days, and just a bit of a recap, go through a lot of thank yous, and generally just talk you through the way I approach this fest, the GT, and everything that went on. It will get a bit rambly, but I will try to cover all the games to show you what I thought when playing Adepta Sororitas in an event like this, particularly in this meta, everything I learned, everything that kind of went on. But a large part of this and a lot of what I said beforehand is going to ring true. And it really showed me it surprised me how many people watch these, to me, silly little videos that I do and put together to kind of help people along their way, and it just means an awful lot. So I'm just going to start off by saying thank you to everyone that does watch these, and thank you for coming up and seeing me. We'll go through it in a bit more detail, but it was just such a wild weekend. I was trying to share it with the community and friends and so on, and just say, hey, look, this is happening and this is surreal. Like, I've never been in this position before. So let's kind of dive into it. I'm going to try and go through the days, and I'll try and do the matches and so on as we go. I do have all my scoring sheets here, so I can go through them in detail. And the actual fest gave this really cool little pack that was all right. It was immaculately laid out, showed you exactly what mission you were playing, and it was nice that it was all printed on cards. You just have them in front of you. I wish it was ring binded. Please ring binder it, Games Workshop, please. But it would be perfect if it was, because like it's cards, you could dry wipe on them, you could draw on them. But it would just be so much nicer if it was just ring bound, and that would be like maybe an extra 10 pence of cost, 20 pence of cost. Next to nothing to do that, but it would make such a difference for actually being able to use it. Otherwise, you got to keep this silly little bit of paper around it, because otherwise your cards go everywhere. So, something for Games Workshop to learn. So, I'm from Leeds, which is about an hour away from Manchester, where Warhammer Fest was. So I headed over there on the Friday beforehand. I am way too old to do commuting every day. I would rather just get a good night's sleep, which did not happen, I will just point out. So I thought I'll go over on the Friday, it'll be fun. I had arranged to catch up with some friends who I haven't caught up with since before the start of the COVID-19 pandemic and the global lockdowns. We kind of fell out of contact a bit during that time, and I was just really excited to see them. It was such a nice ability to just catch up and just be like, well, what's happening on? Because in like 2-3 years. And so I went over there. I went down on the Friday, got in at around 6 p.m. and went to collect the swag that you get for having a 3-day pass. I still have my wristbands on, and yeah, so I collected everything. I bumped into 3 or 4 people that I've played against at events before, and it was that hot because I've not been playing for like 6 months. I've not gone to an event for 9 months or something like that. So everyone's like, oh, how are you doing? And it was just so nice to be a part of the community again. And that's when things started getting a little bit weird. Like when someone came up and just said, are you the Andy? And I was like, what? And I was like, I am Andy from the various Discords out there, like the Sisters Discord, the TTT Discord. Thank you very much, TTT. You are fantastic. The Art of War Discord, all of those places. I was like, I am Andy. So whether that warrants a thee or not, I don't know. And that's kind of when it started, because they were like, oh, I've seen your army. I've watched your videos, and I was like, oh no, people watch what I say on the internet. This is dangerous. And we chatted for a bit, and then I went out with some of the like tournament goers that I've known before, and went to see my friends. We went for a drink Which again, they didn't know a lot of this stuff that happened during COVID, but I stopped drinking. And so they were like, oh, we'll get a bottle of Prosecco for us all to share. And I was like, I don't drink anymore. And we were heavy drinkers. Like, that was our friendship. It was more than that, but we drank a lot together. And then we went out for dinner. We shared tomahawk steak between 3 of us. It was great. And then it happened where I was like, I'm going to get a good night's sleep and feel rested. Then I didn't. And I got like 3 hours sleep, was awake at 2 in the morning, didn't sleep at all before Fest and felt rubbish. Okay? So I felt awful on Saturday morning, like truly, truly awful. And I was like, it's okay. I'll just get up, I'll have breakfast, and then I'll go there. I've already got my wristband, so I don't need to queue, yada, yada, yada. And then I was told there was a massive queue. My friends arrived there early whilst I was waiting for breakfast that started at 8 o'clock. Please, hotels, please can we have breakfast before 8 o'clock? That's ridiculous. Some of us have stuff to do. So they told me there was a massive queue. And I was like, well, I can't wait because I'm starting games in an hour and 15 minutes, and this is gonna be tight. So I just didn't have breakfast. I was fueled on like 1 or 2 cups of coffee, and then headed to the festival. And lo and behold, there was massive queues on the Saturday, like unreasonably large queues. But they were moving quickly, which was important. And yeah, I bumped into Soups. I think it was Soups. In the queue, we waved at each other, said hello. He was walking straight in, and I had to go down this big, massive queue. I didn't know there was a tournament entry queue. GW, please sign these in future. If you're going to have a separate entrance for people entering the GTs and tournaments, that's basically a fast track so that they can get there on time, please make that known, because none of the people or none of the stewards that were kind of guiding you where to go were like, use this one if you're a tournament goer. So they sent me down the massive queue. I did my usual thing. I got chatting to people in the queue. I just struck up conversations, and I think it was, I can't remember where the person was from, and I can't remember his name. Story of this entire weekend. But they were starting to run GTs and tournaments over in their country. They were like the only organizer or so on. And this was his first experience at a GT. And I was like, well, I'll give you the rundown of what I think, like what they're kind of like, for the few that I have been to, what to expect, etc., etc. I just realized Pika's kind of back here, just watching, not knowing. I've been away for 3 days, so she just wants to be involved with everything right now, so she might come and say hello. And then we got into the venue. It was quite roomy, but it was packed. It was absolutely like rammed. But the Saturday, I believe, was the only day that was sold out. So makes sense. There was a few stalls. I say a few. There's like 4 or 5 main areas before you get to the play space. So there was the Golden Demon entries. There was the shop. There was a hangout and hobby space. And then there was kind of a digital space, so to play Warp Forge and the other digital games that are coming out, Games Workshop licenses. Then there was kind of a cosplay and a laser tag area, and then a food court area, and the auditorium. I never got a chance to go in there. And I just did what I always do and just wander into the tournament space and start chatting to random people. And I bumped into the other person that I was with, and just slowly started getting back into the feel of what a tournament's like. And it was like, there's a buzz. There is a genuine buzz. But I felt rough as hell. So I was going through what I would describe as kind of rush, crash. And I'm so glad what happened throughout the day was happening, because it genuinely kept me alive that day. Otherwise, I'd have been out. So we got pairings for round 1. After speaking to people, kind of was like, yeah, catch up afterwards, let's play our games. And I played round 1 against Michael, who was on Death Watch. It was 2 of the Proteus. 2 Proteus kill teams, 2 Spectrus kill teams, and then some characters. I think that's what it was. And I was playing. I'll go into this once now, and then I'll kind of go through anything that's relevant. I was playing Bovenval, Triumph of St. Catherine. Try to remember the name. It's been a while. I think it's Helga, the Canoness with Chaplet of Sacrifice. Bloody Rose Warlord trait called Ransom Charge. It's that one. And Blessed Blade. Helga. Is it Becky? No. Oh no, that's Beneficence. Never mind. And yes, just whilst I'm aware, you will hear my washing machine is going in the background. I wanted to record this whilst everything was fresh in my memory, so apologies for any background noise. And yeah, so we got into round 1, and it was on Recover the Relics. So long ways deployment, and it was very much I knew I was going to, in the tournament prep, I said I was going to take Banners, Shrine, and Leap on this, and my opponent took Warp Ritual, Oath of Moment, and Banners. So I knew Banners was going to be even. We were both going to vie to take each other's banners down throughout. Oath of Moment meant he had to contribute, he had to go into the middle, whereas I didn't. So he basically had to not be on the points, which was kind of big. Then I was going to take Leap of Faith versus his Warp Rituals. Those two, in theory, match at 12. And I knew what was going to happen is I needed to deny him Warp Ritual. And if I could do that, I could get an advantage. Now, I ended up going second. So that gave me bottom of turn scoring advantage. The thing about Recover the Relics is you don't really... you have to take people off 2 points to deny them primary, which means you have to assault on 2 fronts. And if you assault on 2 fronts, that means you're essentially trading 2 assets. And in a Sisters versus Space Marine game, I have more assets. And that's kind of what played out. We were both very cagey in how we played. And he did take me down to 4 on primary 1 turn and took down my banners. He scored 8s throughout the entire game. I was like, I don't need to pressure this. Even taking me down to 4 made up for the fact that I got a 12 at the end of the game. Basically, a lot of this just came down to really chipping away at each other's score. And honestly, I thought he had won the game throughout. I genuinely thought he had won the game throughout. The absolute biggest swing is on turn... It happened on turn 3, but it is the most relevant point in the game. He rolled his Warp Ritual, where his Psyker was, to do that, and I just rolled a 6 on the deny, so it was automatically denied. And that was basically 5 victory points that I knew I'd taken off him. So as long as I kept parity for the rest of the game, he would be down 5 victory points, and therefore I'd win by that amount. The other thing about going second on Recover the Relics, which is massive, is because most armies will take banners on this, because there's 3 objectives right near your deployment zone, so it's a very good banners mission, is if you go second, now you can take down their banners so that on your turn, because they change when banners come down, which means at end of turn scoring, they are denied extra banners points. So what happened there was he denied me 2 banners. I then re-raised them. Then I raised more banners on my turn and took his banners down at the end. So this was it was an absolute nail biter of game, and it was terrifying for how close it was. I was very lucky he didn't have Desolation Marines. If he had Desolation Marines, he probably would have just won straight off. But lovely guy, really meticulous. What I would say was very thoughtful, asked to play on a clock. Very happy to play on a clock with people. But then he took way more time and he ran out of clock time first. Now, I'm not going to say you can't take game actions anymore. That's really unfair. But he ran out of clock time during his turn 4, which in theory means I get turn 5. He doesn't get turn 5, and I get a turn 4 and 5. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna do it properly, because it's unfair. No one wants to win by a clock out. But it's one thing I would say to everyone is just learn to play quicker. I'm the one playing the Horde army. I'm the one that my turns took like half the amount of time, because I planned everything in advance. I knew what I was doing and so on. And so what the scoring came down to was he got 39 on primary. I got 38 on primary. He got 33 on secondaries, and I got 37 on secondaries. So I won by 3 points, 85 to 82. And as I said, it exclusively came down that Warp Ritual deny. I tried to deny it again. Like every turn, I had kept 1 CP to deny with the 4+ deny, because that was such a... It would have been crucial, because it's 5 points gone, then 4 points gone, then 3 points gone each time I do it. And I knew that was going to be the big play of how I break open a close game. And I think that is one of the key things to take away with all of this and everything. This is know your path to victory. If we both stood still, he was very likely going... he probably could have won, but I had the advantage and I couldn't lose it. So he made really, really risky, really kind of strong plays to deny me, and I had to keep myself in it and re-find my path to victory. You really have to always keep an eye on the scoreboard, and I knew going into my turn 4 that if we were at parity in turn 4, then I would win on turn 5, because I would get my 12 and I would deny banners. So really, 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 really good game. Absolute nail biter for a first game. Now, what started happening throughout this game, and it carried on, and this is where it got weird, and I have what's responsible for this right here. This little piece, my Triumph of St. Catherine, or Treason of St. Catherine, as you can see, got a lot of attention. Way more attention than I expected. So, the Treason, which hopefully sit here in view, I don't know, just poking out. Sure, we'll go with that, just poking out in view. I can bring this down a little bit. There you go. The Treason was sat on the table, and everyone that was around me suddenly goes, "What is that?" And then I had people stopping at the table asking to take photos of it. At one point, someone asked to take a photo of me with it. And people were just so incredibly nice, like unbelievably nice about my little ridiculous piece here. And it was... like, I was joking with a friend about it being an ego trip, and like my head was so big at the end of the day. But actually, it was really humbling. And the fact that people were like, "Do you have a YouTube? Do you have this? Do you have that? How did you do this?" It was wild. And obviously, I sent them to this channel where I talk about things like this and just show off my silly little sister's army. And yeah, it just absolutely made my day and weekend. The fact that some people knew me. Someone, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, and it meant the absolute world to me. They came up and like, this happened a couple of times, but the first guy that did it absolutely, it broke my little emo boy heart, where I was just said, like, "I really value your content. I don't even play Sisters, but the way you think about games and the way you talk your way through it and the situation, he finds so valuable." And yeah, it just gave me such an insane feeling throughout the day, and it was all thanks to this little model over here. Obviously, that was something else. That was because of what I put up here, but it was just it absolutely made my day. And one of my other friends, ages back, sent me a picture that says, "We all have superpowers," and it's basically just if you say nice things to people, you can make them feel better. And this weekend really showed me that, because I felt like absolute death. I probably shouldn't have been there. I should not have done as well as I did. And people said nice things, and it gave me energy. And being in a room with someone that gives you energy and makes you feel alive and better is just, I love it. I absolutely love it. And anytime I can do that, it just fills me with life. So find people that give you energy, and always know that if someone is having a bad day, say nice things to them. It doesn't even matter. Like, honestly, it doesn't even matter if they're true. I don't think like what I've done is great. I don't think it's fancy. I think I just did what I did because I go above and beyond. But it's not well painted. It's barely even well modeled. But people saying nice things changed my day. And I was like, this is great. So go out there, tell people nice things, compliment their models, tell them how well they play, do good things, give people energy. And the more people that do that, the better this community becomes, so on. But yeah, so the Triumph, or Treason, basically changed every one of my games. And I had to... It is not a good model. Please understand that if I had 200 points of actual trading pieces, more murder, or just utility, that would probably have been better. But I didn't build my army list with the intention of winning. I bought my army list with the intention of showing off my Triumph or Treason, and as a result, I got exactly what I wanted out of the weekend. The results didn't matter. So anyway, that was round one. Then we went into round two, where I played against Corbin, who was playing Imperial Guard, or Astra Militarum. I never know what the right name is for these things. And like, whenever I see Astra Militarum, my heart sinks, because I'm kind of like, oh no, Mortars teams, and I'm playing Sisters, and I no longer have Armor of Contempt. So I went to the table, and we were just chatting. Again, people were still just wandering around and stopping and speaking to the Triumph. And I said to Corbin midway through, I was like, look, people are going to stop. And they were stopping and they were taking photos. And I was like, please just keep going. Don't think you have to wait for them. Don't think you have to wait for me. Just play. I trust you. And that's something that takes a lot for people to be able to say in games. Like, I trust you've got your rules right. I trust you know what you're doing. Just play. And so I went in and I was like, okay, this isn't a great mission. This isn't a great mission for me, but it isn't a great matchup for me. It was also on Abandoned Sanctuaries, which I absolutely despise. And yeah, so someone said to me that I hate a lot of missions, and I do hate a lot of missions because I've been playing them for nearly 24 months now. Like, the only ones that are new are Abandoned Sanctuaries and Tide of Conviction, and they're awful. They're truly awful. So yeah, I'm fed up of these missions. Please change them. Please, GW, change them. And I was like, okay, well, I have to do some really, really risky plays to not just lose to Mortars teams. So what I did was I outflanked my Repentia, knowing that that they would just die to Mortars teams. I couldn't just have them sat waiting to get Mortars off the board. And I knew I had to push up fast, and I basically had to assault one flank incredibly hard and to make ballsy long charges into his deployment zone to tag the mortars teams as much as possible. And I also made some very... I picked some dodgy secondaries. Well, I picked one dodgy secondary. I was always going to pick Leap and Defend the Shrine. Always. Because my list is built to play Leap of Faith. And Defend the Shrine, I knew if I just collapsed one flank really hard, that would be fine. And I took Bring It Down. Now, Bring It Down against loads of Le Mans Russes and stuff like that, you'd think it's great, but my opponent very cleverly spotted that if he just put his tanks in a corner, there was no way I was getting to them. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But if all your tanks in a corner, I'm just going to charge your kind of home base. And what basically happened was I collapsed one flank really hard. My miracle dice were absolute fire in this game. I had like 4 6s, maybe even 5 6s before turn 2, and like it was madness. It was pure madness what I was able to do. And so what I did was I pushed the left flank really hard. So I collapsed the left flank, which is where my shrine was, Abandoned Sanctuaries. And because we were playing on GW format layer, terrain layout 3, ruins are weird. But basically, I had more obscuring on that side. There's one piece of obscuring, one piece of like dense nonsense. And I basically crushed the left flank as quickly as I could. And that was fine. Crushed the left flank as quickly as I could. And I found this on... Shut up. And so what I did at that point was I was like, okay, if I just stand here, he can whittle me down with mortars teams. He can use his car skin, teleport them, absolutely delete whatever they touch, and so on. So I did a lot of pre-measuring because I knew this turn was going to matter more than anything else. I was going second as well. I was going second on this, and I knew going second on this was actually really relevant because because what I could do was if I held assets back, dogmarted them up with OBSEC and ran them onto the middle objective, I could get the bonus 5 there. So I was really lucky going second on this one. And I just so collapse left flank, build a new castle, second castle here, and then just have and then just kind of be ready to advance onto the center point from behind the second ruin to then score the bonus 5 at the end. I think it's bonus 5, or maybe bonus 3. The bonus for holding at the end of the game. These rules change. I'm probably a season out of date. I don't think it mattered. No, it didn't. But then I did a load of pre-measuring on my turn 2. And I realized that if with my double 6s on miracle dice, I could charge in the unit of sacrosancts that I had cleared the left flank with, and then charge his command squad that was kind of behind his ruin, and then, or through his home ruin, because it wasn't screened, and then after I kill that, which 10 buffed up sacrosancts should very easily kill, then I would tag all his mortar squads, and I don't know if I got the Carskin squad or not, but I knew I would do it. And what I kind of lined up was, these are going to go in here, this is going to be this turn's. I brought my Repentia in, ready to then do exactly the same play the turn after, and have a unit of Zephyrim set up to do it again. So what I because he had put all his tanks on his left flank in a corner so that I'm never going to get them for Bring It Down, I was like, right, I'm gonna push this hard. The other thing really hurt my opponent was he took banners, and Abandoned Sanctuaries is a bad banners mission unless you have fast-moving infantry that can do action early and you can guaranteed hold the second objective that you take. And when I saw he took banners, I was like, right, I am just going to take that home banner down, and I am going to try to make his banners match my bring it down. He's going to deny me all my bring it down points. I'm going to deny him all his banners. And by keeping that parity, it allowed me to manage it so that if we kept parity on primary, I would win because I go second, score a 12, and get the bonus for holding the center at the end. Because, broadly speaking, my shrine is going to be a 15, which matches his inflexible command. My leap is going to be a 12, which broadly matches his boots on the ground. So I needed my bring it down to match his banners to keep parity, win by going. So what I did here was I made these charges. Obviously, the Sacrosancts died. Then the Zephyrim died. Then the Zephyrim and Repentia died. Then, like, everything I sent in was going to die, but it required him changing his orders, denying deep strikes, not doing the deny deep strike. Yeah, all these things. I was like, I am just going to pin you as far back as I can. And then when it got to like turn 4 or 5, I just formed a wall with what Seraphim, Zephyrim, even Repentia. They were like, let's just build a wall so that you can't get into the middle and score more points. So what happened in this game was I basically pushed incredibly hard because I knew I was disadvantaged against the Mortars team. Because, we hate indirect. And what ended up happening was I won 89-64. I really hope that I've got my numbers right. 89-64. I scored 45 primary. He scored 24 primary. So what happened here was because he only went for 2 objectives. He got an 8 the first round, but then I was taking him off his home objective because I had my Dogmata granting OBSEC, and I outnumbered him on his points with OBSEC models. No. And just essentially just pushed as hard as I could. So he went 8-4-4-4, and I went 8-8-8-12. Again, going second, absolutely massive in this game. If he was going second, that would be a 4. That would be probably a 9, if not more, point swing. My leap matched his boots on the ground. I scored 12 on leap. He scored 10 on boots, which was great. Leap of faith, still great. Don't believe the lies. Leap of faith is fantastic. My shrine matched his inflexible command. We both got 15. My bring it down, I got a 6. His banners, he got a 5. So I managed to keep parity on all the secondaries. In fact, I managed to pull ahead slightly. And so yeah, it was an 89-64 win, and Corbin was wonderful. He was such a good opponent. We had such a good chat. I think he said he hadn't played against Sisters before. There were a few people that haven't played against Sisters, and I was like, look, I'm going to do some things that feel like I'm cheating, and that's because Miracle Dice are cheating, basically. And he was like, I did not know you could do this. I was like, I always tell people in advance what I'm capable of doing, because I don't want them to make a decision and then be like, oh, and now something's messed up. This happened in a later game where someone's like, well, I've got one shot that one-shots your Rhino, and I was like, I've got a 6 on Miracle Dice. I will pass my Invul if you go to kill my Rhino with a single shot. Like, there is like no way I'm not doing that. He's like, oh, I'm not going to make this risky play then. Like, I will always try to tell people where there are wins, losses, etc. And that was round 2. So 2-0. One really close game, one less so close game, but it was basically because I took all the risks I could. And it paid off. Going into round 3, again, we continually had people walking up and looking at my Triumph of St. Catherine. And yeah, my day was just absolutely insane for this. I was smiling all the way through it up until the point that I realized I hadn't eaten. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to crash hard, which happened. Anyway, I didn't write down the name of my round 3 opponent. He was absolutely lovely. I believe he's one of the best players in Iceland. I think he is. I think he said he was from Iceland. It's definitely it was somewhere where I really wanted to visit, and I think it was Iceland. I think he's one of the best players there, and he's on a team with Mitch Beard and knows David Gaylard, which to me basically means this guy's great, and he was playing Deathwatch Desolation Marines, and it was 3 of the Proteus kill teams, the really fast moving where you have a bike, a Van Vet, and a Terminator, and then do the extra pile-in and consolidate. So you concertina along the board like this, basically. And he had those, and he had 3 units of Desolation Marine. And I was like, okay, I am mega unfavored in this matchup, but I'm going to play it as best as I can. And I said this to him at the start. I was like, look, I know I'm unfavored in this, but I want to try to play it the best I can. I want to learn. Yes, I may say that I'm losing, but I'm saying this to myself to convince me to keep going. And he was like, it is distracting when you're negative. And I was like, I appreciate that, but it's me talking to myself. I am someone that wants to try to win no matter the odds. Love an underdog story and don't like losing myself. And regardless of any of wins or losses, I just want to be a better player, and I want to kind of get better at this game. So the next time, maybe it's not as crushing a defeat. So this was on worst mission of the game, Tide of Conviction. This was on Tide of Conviction, and I was like, oh, this is really bad. I hope I don't go first. I obviously went first. Died. And so my default strategy when I see indirect is outflank the Repentia, deep strike Zephyrim so that I can make as many charges as I can, and just push and just basically try to make sure I'm stable. It's why I had 2 units of Sacrosancts in the list. And what he did really surprised me, but it was such the right tactic that it was incredible to see. Like, I learned so much from this game. And also, he taught me afterwards, which was so nice, like, absolutely incredible. This guy is wonderful. I'm sorry I didn't get your name. It'll be in BCP somewhere, but absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. So what happened was he basically deployed his entire army in a square in the center of the table. And I was like, this is weird, because if he wants to hold 3 to get 8 on primary, then he's kind of basically he's not going to do that, which means he's going to get 4s. But the reason he did it, and I only know this now, is because all my Repentia, when they walk on within 6 inches of the board edge, it's outside 12 inches. So I can't attack, so they can't charge. So they were basically just lost in the ether. And if I deep strike within 12 inches, he's all infantry, he can Auspex scan me, which means that whatever I play just gets killed. And this was so unbelievably smart. It was incredible to see it. And essentially what happened was I did make some mistakes. So what happened was on Tide of Conviction, you have one objective that's kind of far away from your center, and he was going nowhere near it. So I was like, well, I'm just going to put a cheap unit on there and score 2 points on 2 points for holding one of his objectives. What it allowed him to do was score shock tactics. He was gaining 4. So net, I was losing 2 VP by doing this strategy. So I shouldn't have done this at all. I should have just said, you get your 4s on primary, I will get my 8s on primary, and then at some point you have to push. So, and what happened was it got to kind of battle round 3, end of battle round 3, and I realized at the start of turn 4, I was like, what's going to happen here? given the way the board state is he just pushes everything now, which means my turn 5. Oh no, this was bottom of 3, or was this bottom of 2? It was either bottom of 2 or bottom of 3, but no, it was bottom of 4, and I essentially knew that no matter what I did, he was going to crush me on his turn 4, and I was never going to score again for the rest of the game. And so I conceded at that point. What happened was I'd pushed up, I'd killed his stuff on the flanks and the stuff he'd pushed forward, but the Desolation Marines picked up most of my stuff that could defend. So by the time it got to him going on his turn 4, I just said, I know what you're doing now. You're just going to send all your I think it's Proteus kill teams. Your Proteus kill teams are going to go take my 2 objectives. You're going to get the bonus secondary. I'm going to get 0 primary on turn 5. Then you're also, and all my banners are going to come down at this point because you have obsec and I have 0 natural obsec. And then I'm not going to score my shrine turn 5, and then you're going to take some off me at the end of the game. And as soon as I kind of saw this, I was like, there's no point us playing out the remaining turns. And so I took Defend the Shrine, Leap of Faith, Raised Banners, which I think is a very good set of secondaries on this. I had no reason to leave my deployment zone. He had to come to me, but he didn't have to come to me until he was ready to come to me, which is where the Desolation Marines come in. I think that's what they're called, Desolate. And he took Shock Tactics, Full Order, and Grind them down. And again, they were great secondaries. Primary, I went 4-8-8-0. He went 4-4-8-12. And then I got a couple of the bonuses, and he got the bonus, and then a 4, and then an 8, and then a load of extra. So I got 24 primary to his 45. I got 21, 29 secondary to his 42. So, no, 43. So it was 98 to 63. And it was like, I learnt so much, having not played for 6 to 9 months and only hearing about Desolators. I can undersee what the hype is for. I also really like them in Deathwatch, now that Deathwatch works, with the ability to just say, ignore cover against that unit. Sisters are an army that need cover to counteract AP now that we've lost Armor of Contempt. And I think that combination of indirect ignore cover with high AP in Devastator Doctrine is just like, it's so good. And I genuinely said to him, like, I know I was complaining and saying I was losing. It's me talking through the thought process to myself. How could I improve? And he basically said I played a perfect game, but I was going to lose. And this is one of the hardest things in life to come to terms with. And it's one of the things every Warhammer player or every tournament goer needs. Which is basically, you can play a perfect game and you're still going to lose. You can do everything right in life. You're still going to lose at something. And being able to have acceptance in just what it is, and it breaks. But what he said was, in this matchup, because he's obviously practiced it, and I haven't, he says, the only opportunity you have to counter this is to outflank your Retributors or something with shooting out that can come down outside of sorry, dry throat, outside of Auspex scan range. Okay, so it needs to have over 12-inch range, so they can't Auspex scan you. I think Auspex scan is 12. But basically, you need to come down outside of that, and then you need to shoot the Desolators and just try to pick them up that way. So your multi-melters are the best things for this. Or you can do, like, a proper Sisters list is probably running Armigers right now, so you could have your probably use Mystic Guardian, Mystic Wanderer, whatever it is, come in on turn 1 to shoot. Because that way, in this situation, if they came on the board and just shot at the Desolators, just like pew, 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 have 2 or 3 of them walk on, that would give me a fighting chance. Because then he'd have to commit to kill those, but the rest of my army could then probably handle that. So if I drop my 2 Retributor squads and Treason, I would have a better answer to the thing that just absolutely annihilates me. But I took it on board. I learned, because it's relevant in the next match. And that was the end of day. That was the end of day 1. I was 2-1. I was really happy with that because I said before on the various Discords that I thought I was gonna get 0 wins because I basically haven't played. And so I hard crashed at this point. I'd had 3 hours sleep, no food, and I went into the convention center eating area and had the dirtiest nachos I've had in a long time. But they tasted so good. But they were dirty. That cheese might as well have been fondue. Yeah. But the chili was awful. The chili on it was awful. But it just tasted so after not eating. So then I made it back to my hotel room. I essentially just collapsed on my bed and then was asleep by 9 o'clock or just after 9 o'clock. And I slept for 10 hours of uninterrupted sleep, and it was the best thing I've ever done. I felt so refreshed and energized. And then I was just like, all right, it's day 2. It's time to bring the ruckus. There was various banter that was going around on the Discords about people asking if I was the Andy and stuff like that. And someone said, I kept seeing you, but I couldn't find you. And I was like, all right, game face, hide and seek challenge. Let's see how long I can make this last. And it wasn't very long because he came and found me. Came and found me before round 4 started. So day 1, there was just me and one friend there. No, 2 friends actually were there. Day 1. Day 2, another 2 to 3 people joined us. And one of my friends who was going to be playing in the casual tournament slept in, so just came and spectated my games. And I always make sure, because sometimes people do like doing this, I always make sure that my opponent is comfortable with it. Because some people, it's like playing on stream. Some people don't like the spectacle or the kind of other people watching for mistakes, things like that. So it's just that whole be respectful. Just be really respectful. We're all geeks, nerds. We're just people. We're just trying to play a game and have fun and share a hobby together. Don't make people feel weird or awkward. I couldn't help it with the treason because everyone was like, take a photo of your army. And I was like, look, people are going to come along and ask for a photo of it. Do you mind if I just take the table, put it back? And they're like, no one cares. The big fucking massive base that's missing in the center of your castle. But be respectful because these things happen. You have a gorgeously painted army. Don't. People will come and look at it and be like, this is good. Again, using their superpower. And yeah, so my friend just came and spectated, and it was fantastic. So round 4, I was playing against Philip. And I think Philip said this was his first ever tournament. And he had travelled over from Sweden. I really hope I'm getting this right. Sorry if I'm not, Philip. And he was playing Iron Hands. 6 Dreadnought Iron Hands with 2 Desolate Marine. Oh my word, I thought I was in trouble. But he said he'd never played Sisters. And I was like, okay, well, never played Sisters, so I will do the Sisters explanation. And I was like, so Bloody Rose gives me +1 attack, +1 AP, which means my entire army, basically AP4 in combat. And you just need to be aware of that. And which means you will get no save unless you have an invul. And then I was like, and just so you're aware, I have my I can put Sacrosanct in this Rhino. So I can pre-game move, and then disembark, and then I'll be 3 inches from your deployment zone turn 1. And then if I have, because I generate 2 miracle dice on my turn, one from me, one from the Triumph, I could be 12 inches into your I could be 9 inches into your deployment zone turn 1. And he was like, oh. And we were playing on Version. And conversion is messed up for stuff like this. Because it's one of the missions that have a circle cut out, you will have to check the maths in one of my previous videos. Basically, we're in a right triangle, a right isosceles triangle, 2 9-inch differences, because it's 9-inch radius circle. That means at the closest distance, I think you start about 11 inches, maybe a bit more, and I think you basically have 7-inch charges turn 1. So obviously, if I go, lol, carry forth the faithful, I'm already in his deployment zone, then disembark 9 inches, then potentially have 12 inches beyond it. And I was like, so just so you're aware, this is my threat range going all over his stuff, with 1 unit of Sacrosanct. Like, I just want you to be aware that this is possible. And he, I think he respected it way too much because he deployed incredibly defensively. And he made a massive dreadnought castle that surrounded his Desolation Marine, because he rightly knew that the Desolators would absolutely ruin my entire army. So he made the right decision, but I think he deployed too far back. And I think, but at the same point, if he had just deployed kind of normally, and I had done this with Sacrosancts, and I'd murdered 1 dreadnought, and then tagged all his other stuff, or maybe wrapped something, dear Lord, if I'd wrapped something, would he have been in trouble? Then it could have been much, much worse. So it's one of those swings and roundabouts things, and I love that saying. And one of my opponents used it, and I was like, so he deployed very defensively. He had 2 units of infiltrators that I basically just sent Zephyrim at as quickly as I could. I was like, as soon as these things are dead, can't do anything. And because he's dreadnoughts and they're slow moving, I'm going to use GW terrain and their weirdly massive kind of obscuring bases to just hold these points essentially unshootable, and then just flip on either side of the wall depending on where his dreadnoughts are. Yeah, I just caused a nightmare. So what I did was I deployed knowing that I was going to crush the infiltrators that he'd put on his top flank. So my Zephyrim went up there. Because I believe he went first. Yeah, I think he went first on this mission. I can't actually remember. And I essentially, I didn't want to go for the Sacrosanct rush because it's turn 1. So he didn't have line of sight on the Rhino because of the 2 GW ruins that are like this. And so my Rhino was safe. So what I did was I just got the Sacrosancts out to kill the infiltrators, then consolidated back behind the terrain. I do really, really hope GW does set terrain pieces because some of these were not equal. And it was just really awkward being like, oh, well, are we meant to use this line, or what's this, etc., etc. So I really hope that's a product that comes out with 10th edition. But yeah, so I killed the infiltrators as quickly as I could, and because he had deployed so conservatively, I knew it meant he was never going to score the bonus for conversion of holding an objective not in his deployment zone, or at least for a while. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. Like, I knew I didn't have the output to be able to kill the dreadnoughts. So when he was finally out of his deployment zone, what I started doing there was just pre-measuring how far away I needed to be make sure that he couldn't charge me, even on a 12. And once he'd done this, then I essentially just started sacrificing units, keep him pinned in his deployment zone. So to start with, it was a unit of Seraphim that I just used a miracle dice to advance 6 and create a wall. The dreadnoughts couldn't get further forward. Then the next turn, it was a unit of Repentia that I just built a big wall with, didn't charge, heroic. And then finally, I just used a unit of Retributors. I never shot my Retributors once in this game. And then on the other side of his deployment zone, I used a unit of Zephyrim, then another unit of Zephyrim. I was like, I'm just going to lock you in your deployment zone because this is my path to victory. And he was like, this is so smart. So what happened was his primary went 4-4-4-4. My primary went 8-12-12-12. I had Shrine, Banners, and Leap. Shrine was a 15. Banners, I managed to raise a banner on the center objective and on, obviously, my objective, and then on his, and on the fourth objective. So I got 15 on Banners, and then on Leap of Faith, I got 12. He took Cold Fury, Assassination, and Shock Tactics. He got Shock Tactics turn 1 for 4, and never again. Got nothing on Assassination. I did warn him Assassination was a trap against Sisters, but he was like, no, I think I can do it. And then on his Cold Fury, because he was pinned in his deployment zone, it was very, very hard for him to score higher than 2 on it when I was feeding him something to kill in combat and something shooting. So he got 7 on that. So the score was 97 to 39. 49. 97 to 49. And yeah, it was... No, 39. 97 to 39. I can't do maths. It was a whitewash. I gave him a proper introduction to what Sisters can do, and he was like, "This is seriously impressive." Like he said he hadn't seen anyone play the army like this. And I explained that it feels like cheating, and he was like, "There's definitely some things that feel rough there." But it's what it is. It was a good game. He was happy with it. He learnt a lot. I made sure to teach him what I could do. I said what he probably should have done was outflank some of the Brutalis dreadnoughts, because that would mean I had to screen and I had to be honest. And he probably should have at least had 1 or 2 set up to just walk into the middle. Yes, it means that he's feeding me a dreadnought to kill with a Repentia or something like that. But at the same point, it would score him more on Cold Fury and actually be a threat. But the best part about this was, after my round 3 opponent said, "Here's how you deal with Desolator Marines," I went, okay, well, I'm going to try this. So I outflanked my Retributors. And I walked on outside of Auspex scan range. I was like, cool. And then I shot. I killed 1 unit of Desolators. And then he was like, okay, fine. Well, I'm going to shoot. And I was like, cool. How far away are your other unit of Desolators? He was like 17 inches. I was like, shoot on death. And then when all my Retributors died, I rolled and all 4 of them shot. And I killed the other Desolator unit squad. And he was like, oh no. Oh no. And that was incredible. So thank you very much to my round 3 opponent for telling me how to do this, because it absolutely crushed that game. And yeah, then it was just me versus 6 dreadnoughts, and I was like, this I can handle, because this I can move block. And yeah, so Sisters players, there's your path to victory. Have something that can do that, and just roll insanely well. Like seriously, just roll like absolute fire. I did not deserve to roll that good, but boy, was it a great feeling. And that was round 4, so I was 3-1 at this point. Now, because the way the tournament works, the cut-off for getting put into pods basically was round 5. So, we went on to round 5, where I played against Ryan, who I believe plays for the Scottish WTC team. Absolutely lovely guy. It was like, he was such a joy to play against. and it was just fun. It was such fun from the outset. We were just like he was playing World Eaters, and it was good World Eaters. Like, I've played against other versions of World Eaters that have like Angron in and stuff like that, but this was the World Eaters I was scared of. And it was on Data Scry Salvage, and essentially my thought going into this, when I saw World Eaters, I was like, okay, this is going to be bloody, but it's basically going to come down to who has first turn. Because whoever has first turn on Data Scry Salvage typically has the advantage, because they can touch all the points, and then it's up to your opponent to deal with them. And both of us have access to Fight on Death. And yes, I may have more units, but if he goes first, he has his, like, I think it was like an 11-inch pre-game move, then moves another 11 inches, and then charges everything. He has every single point on the board, and I not only have to deal with what's in my deployment zone, but then I have to deal with taking the board back. So I knew the risk, but similarly, I also knew that if I went first, I could establish like the double castle, and then I could try to keep it even. Yes, he might have second turn scoring, but it becomes a much closer game in that case. And sadly, one of the dice rolls that Sisters can't manipulate is the first turn dice roll. And my opponent won it. And I knew at that point that it was going to be an absolute nightmare. But I had deployed as if he was going first. So I had set up my Repentia. I'd set up a Sacrosanct Wall in my home ruin, basically saying, okay, you can't charge me through these walls, because we're playing GW rules, not WD rules. Fine. We both said it's bullshit, but we both knew that that's the way it works. And then on each edge, I had Repentia. So if he was going to charge into something around my ruin, turn 1, he was going to hit Repentia, which would find death. But what I also had right behind them was the Canoness, nominates fight last, and then can be like, okay, now we don't have to spend 2 CP. So my opponent did his pre-game moves, going first. I had a second castle, and I had like a Deep Strike Zephyrim threat. And then, so I had second castle all set up, and he went first. He basically pushed his entire army forward. I had 2 units of 5 8-bound in my deployment zone turn 1. And then I had 1 and not the Juggerlord, the Lord Invocatus. And what he did, he failed the charge with the Lord Invocatus, and I was like, okay, this is good. I can handle this now. And he charged in with the 2 units. He used 1 unit of 8-bound to attack my Rhino, which I wasn't certain this was the right thing to do. I think he should have gone for things that actually had threat. But and if he was going to do this, he should have made the play to wrap the Rhino, because then the 10 Sacrosancts inside would have died. But basically, he didn't make this play, which gave me an out. Rhino died. 2 Sacrosancts died when they got out. But then I was like, okay, this is fine. Charged into the unit of Repentia, because that's all he could do. Might have declared the Canoness as well, but the Canoness made him fight last. Then the Repentia went first, so we're just like, oh look, we're in range of the Triumph, and we've got all these attacks, and Morven Valsim allowing us to reroll 1 to wound, and we've got our +1 to wound aura, so it's just like, and they're dead. He spent the CP to Fire and Death, which also killed the Repentia, but this gave me Miracle Dice, etc., etc. I was feeling all right about this. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna kill these other 8-bound. So I needed to go up, clear the top ruin, and then push that way. And here's where the problem starts. I have no OBSEC in my list. My only OBSEC comes from my Dogmata, which means which meant wherever my Dogmata was, he just needed to deny me primary with his berserkers elsewhere. It's fine. I learned. It was a meme list. But 2 dog martyrs would make this list fire. And I got to use the Triumph's Psychic Chaos thing in the shooting phase, and it did very little, but I got to use it. I got to use the little known rule that happens. And then so we traded back and forth, but basically he denied me primary for 2 turns. I had 0 primary because it's hole 2, hole 3, and he got a 12, then an 8, then a 4, and I just couldn't get back in it, and that basically sealed the deal. I got 30 on primary, he got 45 on primary. I took Leap, Shrine, and Retrieve Battlefield data. And he took Blood for the Blood God, Pile of Skulls, and Blood God's Due. His secondaries better align with what he's doing. I didn't know what the third objective the third secondary I should have taken. If I had taken and this is kind of just the learning and being out of, I knew if I took banners, I was not going to score well on it, because they'd have been down on turn 1 or down on turn 2, so I'd have scored 1. Then they'd have been down on turn 3, so I'd have scored 2. Then I'd have raised them. I'd probably raise them on turn 3, so then I'd get 3. So maybe if I did that, I'd get 11. Equally, if I took Sacred Ground, I could get 11. But I needed every single one of my assets to actually murder stuff. And this is where we fall into the trap of Leap of Faith being in the same category as No Prisoners. Why is Leap of Faith in a kill secondary category, huh? Why? It's fair, but if I could have taken No Prisoners, that would have been an easy thing, because we'd have murdered each other. But what it is. Him going first was huge. It was 95 to 71. I think if I'd have gone first, the primary would have been kind of a wash. Not because I'd have killed him as quickly turn 1, but because I would have been in a much more defensive position, and I would have been scoring primary. So if I just had 8 more on primary, that'd give me +7. If I'd have then taken, if I'd have done banners, that would have given me, say, another +7, so that's +14, so that would be 85 to 95. But because he wouldn't have got as many kills, and maybe wouldn't have got drowning the objectives, he would have got less. So that first turn swing was big. It was a huge deal. But again, can't control it, have to accept it. It was a fantastic game, incredibly fun to play against. Ryan, if you see this, hear this, you were lovely. It was fantastic. I would gladly play with you again. It did remind me how much I want to play teams events, because as a sisters player, we're not in a great position, but we are incredible in because we're able to dodge the awful matchups and then just kind of do our thing and score our points. And then we went into round 6. So this was at the end of the day. Again, throughout day 2, people were still coming up, because obviously there's a new audience in. They were coming up and talking about Triumph. This is where someone came up and asked if they. Loads of people were asking if they could take photos of the Triumph. Like, that's fine. Like, I'm very happy to do so. But this is where someone said, "Can I take a photo of you with the Triumph?" And I was like, "Sure." Like, I mean, there's videos of me on the internet. There's photos of me on the internet. But it was just that weird kind of like, I feel weird now. But it was great. It was like, again, people were using the superpower we all have, and they just made my day. It was so good. And I felt so energized from it. Like, it was just such a nice feeling. And then I went into round 6 and I played against James. So James was a Chaos Knights player, and he was 14 Armigers, which was, I was like, this could be rough here. Because obviously I'm aware of Ravenous Terror Shades, all the chip mortal wounds that they can do, and the fact that they're all OBSEC 5 models. I have 0 OBSEC. And yeah, there was loads of stuff like this that I was like, ugh, this is not going to be. And we were playing Tear Down Their Icons. I think that's what it's called. Bomb planting. All right? So I knew I was kind of a bit of a disadvantage in this because of the objective control. James, I think James said this was his first tournament. Maybe he's been to more tournaments. But either way, he said that he played Sisters back in 2nd edition, sold his army, and has been really interested in starting again, but no one he knows plays them, and he didn't really know anything about the army. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Let me explain. And again, do this with your opponents. If your opponent has never played against your faction, and bear in mind, most people don't get to play that many games. If your opponent hasn't played against your faction, explain it. Tell them what it is, because it will make them feel more comfortable. Like, I always say the same things. I say, so I'm Bloody Rose. That means I get +1 attack and +1 AP on the charge. So just understand that my entire combat profile, except for a few small cases, AP 4, which means if you don't have an invuln, you will get no save in combat. If you I have miracle dice. I use these. I substitute these instead of making a dice roll and say that dice roll is that number. Important things to know. Like with charges, I can use 2 dice in them. I can put in double 6 and have guaranteed 12 inches. With saves, because my entire army has a 6 invuln, I can use a miracle dice that's 6 and automatically. This is where the. I'm just going to shoot your rhino, and I was like, I will definitely save that. And yeah, and just explain it. Tell them the gotchas. Tell them the tricky things. Like I said, tell them if they're going to take assassinate, and you're like, you may not want to do that because Sisters characters are notoriously bad for this. Someone was playing against Sisters next to me, and he was like, I think I'm going to take assassinate. I was like, please don't. Like, why? I was like, you can't kill Sisters characters. 1, they have CP reroll for a save. 2, they have a miracle dice for another save. 3, they can adjust a dice roll by discarding miracle dice for another CP. 4, they can stand up from death. And I was like, if you go to kill a Sister's character, if you go at the king or queen, you better not miss, because if that character lives, you are in trouble. And you will have way overcommitted to it to make sure it dies. And he was like, oh, I didn't know that. I was like, and this is why we tell each other these things, because otherwise, like, who wants to win a game because your opponent made a mistake? Who wants to win because your opponent didn't know a rule? Like, if I win, I want to know it's based on skill. I want to know that it was me that won the game, that it was my ability as a general, not because I didn't say something or I lied. You know what? Like, honesty breeds a good community, and we have a great community in this game. Keeping it great is incredibly important, so we just need to make sure that we actually deliver upon that and so on. And yeah, so just tell people. So anyway, James said he hadn't played against Sisters and he wanted to know about it. So I mean, I joke about this. I think I'm a good Sisters player. Like, a lot of people seem to respect me about it, and like a lot of people look to me for like what are my advice and so on. And so I was like, well, I'll do my best to give you a masterclass in what Sisters can do. But in the back of my head, I was like, I'm in trouble. I'm in danger here. And again, I warned him about the Sacrosanct Rhino of just YOLOing up the field and then charging in. And he was like, so he deployed quite, it wasn't actually that defensively, but I told him, like, and again, Big Sisters thing to tell people, you have a maximum threat range of 24 inches. Yes, you can get to 25 if you put the Sacred Rite on your Apentia to advance 7 inches and then charge 12 inches. But tell them. Tell them that outside of 24 inches, most things are safe from you. If you're not showing double sixes on miracle dice, they shouldn't worry too much. But tell them. And I think he played really defensively. He was going second, and he deployed quite far back. I knew that my secondaries were rough. I took Shrine, Leap, and Bring It Down, because obviously Chaos Knights. And he took Ruthless Tyranny, Storm of Darkness, and Grind. And I was like, okay, these are tough. So now let's deal with primary. Now, I've done the maths on primary on this mission. If I hold my two objectives, the one in my deployment zone and the one literally just outside the top deployment zone, if I hold those and I plant 3 bombs, I get 40. I think if you plant 3 bombs, you get 44 on primary, or 40. Yeah, I think it's 44 on primary or something like that. And if you, or maybe it's, you get 32 plus 4 plus 4, that's 40. Yeah, so if you plant 3, you get 44 on primary. If you plant 4, you can get 48. And essentially what I did was, I was like, okay, my goal this game is to plant 3 to 4 bombs, so that I can cap primary. Okay, I could do that. So I outflanked my Repentia, my Zephyrim and a Seraphim. The idea was I'm gonna walk on 1 unit of cheap Repentia, get 1 bomb, deep strike 1 unit of Seraphim to get another bomb, and then I was gonna do either another unit of Zephyrim or move a Rhino later in the game to get a 3rd bomb, something like that. And I was just going to play that and just try to eke out primary. He knew that if he walked his stuff forward, I could probably kill them, so he could manipulate my Bring It Down and keep that low. I knew that if he wanted Ruthless Tyranny, basically had to commit an Armiger to the center every turn to score decently on that. Fine. If he wanted to score Storm of Darkness, he would need to commit an Armiger to the center, and that would give him a 12 that would match my Leap. So I assumed Leap of Faith and Ruthless Tyranny were equal. Leap of Faith and Ruthless Tyranny would both... Shrine and Ruthless Tyranny would both be 15s. Leap and Storm of Darkness would both be 12s. I took Bring It Down, and he took Grind Them Down. And I was like, okay, well, Grind Them Down, in theory, he could get a 15 on, particularly if he's going second. But actually, if I'm really careful, and on the turn when he kills my units, I make sure I kill back. I make sure I overkill with 1 unit, whereas he then only kills 1 unit in response. So my game plan here was to multi-charge. So I was going to multi-charge a unit of Zephyrim, or a unit of Seraphim, or a unit of Repentia into 2 Armigers, so that when he flipped around to kill my unit, I would have killed 2 of his knights. He would kill 1 of those, and then the 1 that walked on to plant a bomb, so he wouldn't score Grind Them Down on those turns. And I played that perfectly. And those are the things that if you see it in advance, you know how you can kind of work around it. And I've also played against Chaos Knights a lot, and the best thing you can do to overcome their red table is you just roll 6s on miracle dice, right? And know that if you're always assume that you fail every dread test. If you assume you fail every dread test, just make sure you're within 6 inches, so that if you roll a 12 on the dice, you still get in. And that's essentially what I set up every single turn. So I would, so 1 turn, that was my game plan going in. So what I did was, because of the 2 central runes in GW stuff, I could position behind them. Because he deployed defensively, he was not going to score high on Ruthless Tyranny or Storm of Darkness unless he started coming forward, and he came forward a turn too late. needed to commit 1 turn earlier. But what I did was I had Repentia and a Repentia Superior around there, or behind the ruin, and then I pushed him back with a unit of Zephyrim. So Baal and Retributors were shooting down one side, and then I deep struck some. So 1 turn I deep struck Zephyrim after Vaal and Retributors were shooting at 2 or 3 Armigers. The Zephyrim multi-charged 2 Armigers, and that's when I could, like, the best thing you can do in this instance against Armigers and punching up is you can't remember the name of the strat, but you give them Zealot for 2 CP. Then you use the Bloody Rose strat. Is it Bring It Down? Can't remember. Bloody Rose strat for 6s to hit auto wound, and you just roll buckets, and you're just kind of like, right, we just fish, because Chaos Knights don't have an invuln in combat, so being AP4, just they're dead. And yeah, Zephyrim multi-charge kill 2, and then they just sat there, and because his Armigers were further away, he only had 1 that could shoot and charge them, and like my miracle dice were disgusting. I just had 5s and 6s for days, so I was like, okay, well, this is the last shooting, use a 5, pass it, killed 1 Zephyrim with all your shooting this turn. Oh, you've done some combat, roll them 1 at a time, 5, 5, use a miracle dice, nothing dies, murder. So like 1 unit of 9 Zephyrim killed 3 Armigers by themselves, and then a unit of Seraphim dropped down and planted a bomb behind them. Then with the Repentia in the middle, they advanced from behind it, got within 6 inches of 2 Armigers. A Rhino that was nearby charged in first to soak Overwatch. And then the Repentia, they failed their dread test, but I had 2 6s showing, and I was like, can we charge both? And then they had the +1 to wound, and then again they have Zealot themselves, so I did 6s hit auto wound and 6s to wound, do +1 damage. Canoness also charged in, fought last one of them, and it was like, okay, so again I got to do the 1 asset kills 2 things, and stuff like that is really important because it allows you to play around their secondaries. So knowing how you're going to beat their secondaries and overcome what is potentially a loss is a really important factor. But yeah, the combination, and this is why Sisters is such a complicated army, because you need to know which layers of buffs you're putting up. Because if you undercommit your buffs, then you will not hit hard enough. And if you overcommit them, you don't have enough resources to be able to overcommit like that. So you really have to know where the dial is. And that's something that takes a lot of practice. And yeah, so I managed to do this. So in the end, I think I got 45 primary to his 32. I had 3 bombs alive at the end of the game. Maybe that was 44. It was either 44 or 45. And then I got 14 on Bring It Down, 12 on Leap, 15 on Shrine. He got 3 on Ruthless Tyranny, 8 on Storm of Darkness, and 6 on Grind Them Down. So it was 91 to 59, or 90. I might have written this down wrong. Wonderful game. Absolutely lovely guy. James, thank you very much. And that was the end of it. I was 4-2. I was in, I went in not expecting to do well. I think in my heart, even though I joked about going 0-6, I thought a 3-3 finish would be a fair finish for the fact that I basically haven't played in 6 months. And that Sisters are not great at present. And that I had a meme list with the Triumph of St. Catherine in it. But 4-2, I was really pleased with. I think I played well. Everyone said I played very well in again, my positional play and my knowledge of the rules was incredibly good. I think I probably made some mistakes along the way. I was so tired on day one that if I made mistakes in our games, I am so sorry. There was things when I couldn't remember the AP of weapons, and I think it was the crack missiles or Fidelis or something like that, and I was just like, I can't remember this. Like, just say it's 1 or just say it's 2, whatever. And it didn't matter, but that's something I need to work on, is not to let tiredness impact my rule. Because I always feel bad if I get something wrong after the fact. So if I have done, I'm really sorry about it, but it's like 40k is complicated. And it's something we all need to be respectful of, is that getting things wrong or being tired, it's not an excuse to be grumpy or moody or frustrated. Like, let's just be respectful of each other, and let's just be kind to one another, because we all just want to play a game. And if people leave playing a game feeling bad, it's not me, is it? Because the community shrinks and we stop having people to play against. And that was the end of my day. I did eat. I went and got a bagel, and then I was up chatting to people until like 11 o'clock, just be like, this has been the most insane of weekends. Like, and I say this now, and I say this as honestly as I can. Anyone who's watching this, anyone who's on any of the Discords, or who came up to said to me, is like, I like your stuff, like taking photos of my triumph, all of that, you absolutely 100% made my weekend. Winning, being at a big festival, none of it meant anything to me until people were like, you did this and this is great, and it just shaped my entire experience. I've told a few people, I haven't said it kind of openly on here. I don't know, like, I've fallen out of love with the game a bit, and I basically didn't make content about Warhammer for like 6 months or 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, whatever it was. But suddenly having people say, I like your stuff, it just gives me so much energy about it. And I'm like, and so I came back this morning and I was like, oh my God, I have to record this because these people liked what I said. So I need to let them know that you absolutely made my day. And I do this for you, not really for me. Like, I started making 40k content to help people overcome social anxiety, to kind of get people into a tournament scene that have been nervous to go because they're worried about the rules or stuff like this. And that's why I started this, and that's why I'm still here, I guess. And the fact that people recognize that was huge. So this is a sincere thank you to all of you that kind of hype me up, make me feel excited and energetic. And I'm just going to keep doing it for that. I will probably end up doing some stuff on Star Wars Shatterpoint. I am really excited for that game because I love Star Wars, and I've been wanting to play a skirmish game for a while. Like, I thought I wanted to do Necromunda, and I will. I have a gang for it, but I'm really interested in Shatterpoint because it's Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I will get into 10th edition, but I want to wait until the first kind of competitive pack comes out. I'll do, when we get the Sisters indexes, which I assume we'll get, I'll probably do a review of everything in the index and just be like, this is my thoughts on this. This is what I think I think these are the best units. I've got a feeling if all the rules carry true, I think we're going to end up basically be a Rhino Rush faction where we're just going to have rhinos full of Repentia, Sacrosants, and other melee stuff to just be like, go. I really hope we get Bloody Rose early. Because that's how I love to play. But we'll figure that out when we get there. But I will make sure to record something on it. But yeah, that has been my Warhammer Fest experience. If you didn't get a chance to go, and there is one next year, please, like, definitely come along. If you see me at an event, if you watch this video, everything, tell me you like it, because that's kind of my sole motivator right now. Everyone just filled me with so much energy that I just want to keep going with stuff to give more back to the people that actually give me life and so on. So yeah, this has been a long, rambly hour and a half sit down and chat, but hopefully you've kind of seen the ups and the downs. I've talked through some of the things I've learned. I know sisters seem in a rough position, and I think they are, but I also think you can have good game, and I think you could build a much meaner list than what I had. I don't think you need the Triumph. Like, I was swimming in mirrors. I did not need them. I think if I was going to play a really competitive list, I would drop the Retributors and drop the Triumph, add in 3 Helverins to walk on the board, and shoot Desolator Marines. I would probably run... I don't know if I'd run Bloody Rose. I might run Valorous Heart. Just have Armor of Contempt. You know, it's so necessary for us. And then just loads of Sacrosanct and Zephyrim, and just accept that you're not as lethal in combat as Bloody Rose, but you're just going to be a points factory. I think if I was doing that and I didn't have the Triumph, I would make sure that I had access to Litanies of Faith and Beacon of Faith for additional Miracle Dice manipulation. That's the reason I brought the Triumph, was to make sure that I had extra Miracle Dice for Leap of Faith. And I think in that instance, you're just playing the Leap of Faith, Defend the Shrine, plus banners or something. One thing that came up before the tournament, people said I should drop my Seraphim unit. And I agree with that in most instances. However, there was a lot of elves on the tournament. On the table next to me, there was basically a person playing Ynnari on one side of me the entire day. And when I was speaking to him, he was also playing against someone who's playing Sisters. I was like, yeah, the big difference, I have Seraphim, and he was like, yeah, I can't beat Seraphim. And that's why I keep Seraphim in my list, because they come down, they flame one squad, then they flame another squad, and then they can't get charged because you're going to flame the third squad. Unless it's Howling Banshees. And he was like, yeah, Sarah is like, nothing scares me, but those things scare me. Yeah, so it was a fantastic event. It was absolutely incredible. I thank you all for getting in touch. Anyone that's said anything, anyone that's followed me on YouTube, subscribed, whatever, thank you. And this has been my tournament report. So thank you very much. I will see you on the next one whenever that happens. So take care and speak soon. See you later.